Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're having a fabulous week. So glad you are joining us. I'm sipping on some Chardonnay. Let me know in the comments what your pleasure is tonight. I have Holly, Cheryl, and Ray with me tonight. Still haven't got the definite date on Ask Seahorse Source Part 3, but it's really, really coming together. Sorry it's taken so long, guys. Dan's just busy, and we want to make sure to get all the information right before I drag him in here and have him here for a week. So anyhow, if you're on Instagram, as usual, it's going to look funny to you. You might be able to see me now, but I'm way over here because of the formatting on Instagram. So you can, of course, listen on Instagram, but if you want to see the video and actually interact with us and ask questions and make comments, hop on over to YouTube. Every comment you put in the comment section, we can see. And I can even give you a link to jump in the stream if you prefer that. Anyhow, last week, before we ended, I know Francis was with us, and he usually doesn't come until later. But when you get here, Francis, let me know you're here, and of course you can jump in if you are able. And we want to hear about his combs. And then at the end of the stream last time, people were requesting questions be asked this week. And Holly, what did you say you thought they were?
There was something about training, and it had to do with food. And I don't remember if it was training them to eat frozen or training them to eat out of a dish. It
Okay. Well,
was
and
training.
I see Heather's here. Heather, if you remember what the topics requested were, let me know. If we don't cover the topic that you requested this week, I will go back and watch and the end of last week and make sure that we get to it very soon. But if it was training, we'll discuss that. And last thing is, Heather, if any of us sound really loud or really quiet, just let me know, please, because these AirPods are whacking me out there, and it's making everything sound funny. I think the stream is okay. I just think it's me, but I'm just saying that. Okay. So, anyways, let's start that. Let's start with, let's say, Ray, because Holly, I'll come to you for the dish because you're the dish mama. But Ray, what's your trick for weaning or getting seahorses to eat frozen?
I've
Let's
never
take
had the
it.
problem, so I don't have any tricks.
So because you always got captive bred, they always were eating frozen right away,
Yeah.
right?
The only ones are like the ab that I have right now that won't eat.
Right.
And on the weekend, one of my daughters brought me some red shrimp, but even that didn't work.
Oh, yeah, I meant to ask for an update. So the red shrimp, they won't eat those either?
Nope. Well,
Oh my
the
gosh.
male is.
The male does.
Yeah, the female,
Oh,
she's not eating anything. So I
Oh,
expect a month or two from now she'll pass.
That's what it
oh.
sounds like.
It's so crazy how long they actually can go without food, miserable. But do you have any other, have you had any other figuring it out moments? Like, I can't think of the word, but like any other ideas of what's going on, or do you just think it's age?
Not
I
really.
know we
Like
talked
I've
last
had
week.
this happen over the years, but it's usually the seahorses come down with something, and I haven't been able to identify the what the problem was. And I would say less than half the time I've succeeded at uh, tube feeding and got them to the point where they started feeding on their own again. But more than half the time I failed and in time lost the seahorse.
Right. Well, and I can't. I'm so bad with names, guys. But I know someone that joined last week was having a lot of trouble with their seahorse. If you're here tonight, or if you come in later, be sure to give us an update because I know that you were trying to not tube feed, but feed above the seahorse like Tom Hornsby did. And we just want an up. I know we told you last week, big water change, freshwater dip to kind of diagnose, but we want an update. I always forget to ask, and I definitely care, and I want to know. Okay, so Ray, speak, and then I got a question for you.
Um, you asked, you were talking about, yeah, what's his name with the combs.
Francis?
Yeah,
Francis.
you were sitting there asking Francis when you get in, can you come? And now you're asking this girl to come in. How are they going to know?
I know. Well, so sometimes when they go to the stream, well, I guess when it's live, it doesn't start at the beginning. You're right. You're right. Well, I'll just keep saying it throughout. But you're right. But
Well,
so Ray, but you go ahead, Cheryl.
I was going to say what Francis was going through. is the female is eating well and is really grown, but the male is still a bit smaller and not eating as well. He messaged me a few days ago,
Oh,
and I suggested he add some additional live food in the form of like mice and shrimp and stuff like that, because these are a wild caught pair, and as such, they're going to be more reluctant to accept frozen food than a captive bred pair that has been raised with it.
right.
And that was my suggestion to him. If that was the question that you're referring to, that we had that discussion already.
Okay. Okay. Well, I definitely hope he does come and gives us an update. But just for the all around, and Holly, I see your question. I promise I'll get to it in just a second. But just to give people, anybody who's just, because there's a lot of different people come to this and have, hey, Salty Reef, nice to see you. Sorry, I'm rumbling and jumbling as usual, stumbling over my words. But Ray, you've raised a lot of fry. Do you have any tricks to getting them to eat frozen? We'll just cover the whole spectrum and then go to Holly's question.
I guess I've never really thought about it because, they just get to a certain size and I figure, well, it's time to put them on. I actually use a potato peeler to scrape off from the flat pack that I use. I buy the 1 pound flat packs. I don't like those cubes. And so
Right.
with the flat pack, a lot of people use a knife or something to scrape them or chop them, but I just found it so easy. Just take a potato peeler and pull the plastic back and work at it with that potato peeler until I got the amount in that I want, for depending on how many are in that particular container. And then afterwards, of course, it's not a case of putting it with the fry. It's not a case of putting in just what they're going to eat, because you have no idea when you're getting them onto it just how much they're going to eat. So you have to remove anything in excess. I wasn't, how do I say? I wasn't to the point of removing it in like a 10 or 15-minute interval, like I mean, all about the adults. It would probably be in the tank for an hour, hour and a half before I would clean it up. But then again, I was doing this once I learned a little bit more. My earlier fry didn't get the same treatment, but I was feeding 6 times a day with the last of my Redeye and with all of my Erectus.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. You're better off if you are home and you can do it, feeding them every few hours, smaller amounts, because it's going to go through them so fast. Even 4 hours, they're going to be completely empty, and they probably are not going to search at the bottom of the tank for additional food at that stage.
And I think, Cheryl, you were the one, because I understand the question, how do you get wean fry onto frozen? Because I always had trouble with it. Ray makes it sound like it's a piece of cake. Every time I struggled with it, because once a couple of them would eat the food, then they all would kind of figure it out, And I've heard other people say, if you're breeding multiple pairs, and I want to read Heather's answer too, but if you're breeding if you have multiple batches of seahorses and maybe one's older, you're taking a risk by mixing them within tanks. But if you get an older seahorse that is already eating frozen and put it in with the little 4-week, 5, 6-week olds, and they see the older one eat it, then they'll start eating it. But I know, Cheryl, your big answer to me all the time, you and Dan, was tough love. You got to have tough love. Stop giving them the brine, right? Or Artemia.
I haven't had a problem with that, because I'll put in what I normally do is at the beginning of each meal, when I'm getting ready to wean them, they get frozen. That's when they're the most hungry. That's when they're the most likely to try something. And all it takes is one seahorse, and then you get seahorse C, seahorse do, and end of problem. And again, it's going to vary somewhat by species. Rectus are easy; they're pigs.
Mm-hmm.
Combs are harder, engines are harder, Redeye are harder, because they also grow more slowly. They don't pick up quite as quickly on some of this. And it may be a genetic basis. It may have to do with most of the Erectus we see have been captive bred for multiple generations, versus Colbs or Engines or Redeye or Hystrix, those. And I think that's also a variable factor that we have to take into consideration when we're working with them.
True, true. And Holly, I saw that you said same here when Ray was talking about the potato peeler, but you guys are all making me, if you're out there watching and you have fry and they won't take the frozen and you're pulling your hair out, please understand that I'm with you. These guys all say it's no big deal, but I went through it. I remember just crying, eat the food, please eat the food. And they just wouldn't eat the food and it would just drive me nuts. But what they're saying is good. I'm going to let Holly talk now. But it sounds like Heather uses the big brother trick. That's only if you have another batch, but definitely it does work. And once you get just one, and I'll tell you, I've tried. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I know Holly's turn, but I've tried everything from making sure the food stays in movement. Even when I wasn't in a tub, I'd find ways with spray bars and different things to keep the food moving so it seemed alive. And I just struggled with it fiercely. But Holly, what was your experience? And then also tell us about training to a dish.
Well, actually, pretty much the same as Ray. I use the potato peeler, and I buy the flat packs of mysis also. So I just shave off, a little bit and rinse it. And then, like everyone else was saying, I give them, when I'm training the babies, I give them the frozen food first. They're more likely to try it in the morning. Like Heather said, if it's the first meal of the day. I did find a lot of them did learn to eat it once it hit the bottom, not when it was floating.
Exactly.
And that's the same time I start dish training with the babies, because then they learn where to find the food. I use like a little clam shell, the kind you use when you're doing a clam bake on your grill or something, the stuffed clams. I just wash them out real well and disinfect them. And then I give the baby seahorses a tiny dish. And what's interesting, I don't know why it is, but the live brine shrimp, the live baby brine shrimp also tends to congregate in those. So they learn. I don't know if they go down there and can't figure out how to get out or what the thing is, but they'll kind of gather, or maybe they're looking for food too. I don't know, but they'll go get in the clam shell. And so the baby seahorses learn pretty quickly to go to the clam shell. And then, once they start eating frozen, they know to find it there. And I broadcast feed them also. So they're learning all the ways, really.
I have a video.
Tough love. Everybody's right about that, because you just have to be consistent. And every meal, give them the frozen first, or maybe later in the day, mix it. I used to mix it with the live, like in the same, I'd put it all together in a little thing of water. And so it all comes together, and they're going to get some frozen accidentally maybe and go, oh, that was good. But they do figure it out. You just got to do it like every meal several times a day, every 2 or 3 hours. And they figure it out.
Well, I love Seahorse Corners. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I was just going to say, what I will do is if I had frozen first thing in the morning and nobody seems interested, I'll wait a half hour, 45 minutes, give them a little bit of live. The next meal is going to come an hour, at least 3 hours later. So they're going to be even hungrier because they didn't get breakfast. And the difference then is they're going to be much more interested in the food than they were first thing in the morning. And it's tough love. Bottom line is it's tough love.
Heather nailed it. She said you got to be more stubborn than the babies. And it was always a big struggle for me. So if you're out there and it's a struggle for you, please understand I'm with you. You just got to get through it. Their suggestions are good. Hold the live foods. Don't give it to them. Feed the frozen first thing in the morning. And they're not going to. It's as Heather said in her other comment, it's worse to keep them even on enriched Artemia once they're 8-9 weeks old versus going through the struggle of maybe even losing a few with tough love to get the rest eating, because they're not. Go ahead, Cheryl, you can follow me up on that.
Yeah, well, one of the things too that I've learned over the years is the younger they are when you start the frozen, the easier they are to train to eat frozen because they don't seem to have the same inhibitions. If you wait until 12 weeks, you're going to have one heck of a hard time teaching them to take frozen. You take those same seahorses, start them at 6 weeks, and they're going to be much more curious. And it's kind of like I put in crazy things like little seahorse statues in with my fry. And all of a sudden, everybody's circling, everybody's curious, everybody's inquisitive. And the same thing happens when you add food. So all it takes is one going, snick. And I had one Combs, little bitty Combs, scared the you know what out of me. I put in frozen food, and here she is laying on her side, slowly swimming.
Looking at it?
Behind the frozen food, slowly moving closer and closer and closer. And after, I don't know, it was at least a minute or two, all of a sudden, because I'm thinking there's something deadly wrong with this seahorse, and I'm getting ready to freak out because I'm thinking I got a bacteria in there or something. Next thing I know, there's the snick. And Kelly just froze.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they can eat as young as 2 weeks. I agree.
Yeah, I start mixing right about 2 to 3 weeks. I start by mixing actually frozen baby brine shrimp with their live brine, just so they get used to the taste of frozen, so when they see bigger frozen, they're okay with it.
Well, you're doing
And then
two
I
things.
go to brine shrimp. Another thing I do is use live adult brine shrimp when I'm teaching them to eat the bigger frozen pieces of mysis, because once they learn they can eat a big live brine shrimp, they're more likely to go for the big dead mysis.
They're going to go for the largest food source that they can actually consume, getting it into their snout and swallowing it. That makes perfect sense to me. And the thing is, they don't really know the difference between live and dead. They play dead on the substrate. Why doesn't the prey? So it makes no sense to think in terms of, well, since it's laying there, I'm not going to be interested in it, because that's one of their survival strategies. And so there's a lot of different factors that go into it. I mean, I remember going back probably 18 years ago, struggling to get Erectus fry that I was raising to take frozen. Well, when I stopped panicking and just put the food in, gave them 30, 45 minutes, and then added a little bit of live, I came to the realization, you've been making this a lot harder on yourself than it needed to, because they weren't that difficult. Different species are going to be different. Now, I'll tell you that up front. Combs are very slow, methodical feeders. Injuns are big bruisers. They want something that's huge to consume. And they think like PE mysis is small for 2 to 3 year old Injuns. And so that's the other thing you have to look at is what species are you dealing with? What is their normal feeding behavior? Combs are typically what I call rock seahorses. They like to slowly pick through every hole and every rock in the tank looking for food.
Apologies, guys. I had to jump on a different computer. I just have to get rid of that computer. It just leaves me. Heather, I haven't forgotten about your question, though. Where are we, guys? Because I haven't heard anything you guys just said.
Oh, we were just discussing different types of seahorses have different feeding habits.
Gotcha. And just to fall back to what we were saying earlier, because I had something, I lost what I was going to say, but I was going to say something about, I've got a video up now where when I walk up to the tank, I have a net that I strain the food in. And when I have that net in my hand, the seahorses shoot to the top. I mean, they're like, here I am. I've got one video of me using a turkey baster because I was doing the video to show how to do it. And the seahorse is literally snicking it out of the baster.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mine do that. They know their feeding kit. I use a Tupperware with a little sieve and the turkey baster. And when they see their feeding kit, yep, they know about. As a matter of fact, if someone's not paying attention at mealtime, I'll try to wave the feeding kit in their line of vision, and a lot of times that brings them around. They'll turn around like, oh, it's time to eat.
Sorry. Just a minute. I'm trying to stay in one and not the other. Okay. Hang on. Let me just X out over here. All right. Apologies. Go on.
Yes. The thing is, I operate under the principle of you snooze, you
Go
lose.
on, Holly. What else were you saying?
Oh, you didn't miss much. I was just saying I'll
I
even
can
use the feeding kit. Like if a seahorse isn't paying attention at mealtime, like if they're sitting not facing the right direction or something, I'll stick the feeding kit in their line of vision to show them it's time to eat. And that often brings them around. They're like, oh, it's mealtime.
One thing is I don't do that. My attitude is, hey, if you're hungry, you're going to eat. If you're not hungry enough to come over now, you will be by the next feeding.
Yeah, I give them a chance, but I'm doing like mostly 3 regular meals a day now. And I found that since I started doing that, the males especially, the females don't miss a meal. They'll come pretty much every time. But the males now will sometimes choose to miss lunch. Like they'd rather nap or something and then come eat a hearty dinner.
Well, and gosh, why am I still echoing? Okay. Sorry,
I don't
guys.
hear an echo.
Okay, maybe it's just me. I'll just
Yeah, I
ignore
don't
it.
know.
Okay. No, I can't take it. Okay. I'm just gonna X out over here. Okay, I think we're good now. I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay, I'm just going to stay on the Mac because at least it doesn't die. It doesn't look as good, but it doesn't die. Okay, and I will just say that Ray earlier put in the comment section something about stubborn women in our comment section, not in the full one. What did you say, Ray? Something about must be natural for the women?
Well, I just said stubborn with question marks. That probably just comes natural for the ladies, eh?
Tisk, tisk.
Well,
All right, no one here.
keep in mind the males are larger. They typically carry more body fat because when they start incubating eggs, they need the extra body preserves and lipid profile to be able to carry all those eggs. So they really don't need to, if they're not pregnant, they really don't need to eat as much as they do when they are pregnant. And it makes sense that they would not have as strong an appetite when they're, if just delivered, the last thing they're really probably very interested in is food. They're more concerned with what happened to my kids.
Right. Absolutely. And I kept going out in and out, guys. And again, apologies. I thought we were past this stuff. It's this computer. But I think we pretty much covered it last week. And I do want to get to, Heather's question about the starfish. But would you change? I know we've talked about feeding fry. I'm not sure how deep you guys got while I was gone, but what would you say to someone who's new seahorse? Like I actually made a video. I'll try to link it when we're done. But I made a video about getting new seahorses to eat because sometimes they won't right away. Sometimes they will. It's totally, what their experience has been or, how their attitudes are or whatever. But what other, aside from the things that I say in the video, which you guys obviously can't see right now, but what are your tricks for, it was Holly Restarfish. What are your tricks for getting new seahorses to eat or seahorses that stop eating? Like we covered it last week, Ray's trying live foods and things like that. Is there anything else?
The biggest thing I do,
I would say if you got them, from a breeder, and you can't get them to eat, let the breeder know and see how they feed them.
Call them. Yeah, good point.
one thing I do typically when I bring in new seahorses, I bring them in, I unbox them in very low light, virtual dark. I blow out the bags briefly, then I add them to the tank. I keep the lights off. If I'm going to be in the same room with them, I sit back where they're not going to be seeing me, and I don't move, and I just watch them. I'll typically give them about 2 hours, and then what I'll do next, assuming that they're captive bred because they're used to eating mice or frozen brine shrimp, I'll add some adult brine shrimp. Normally, if you watch them, all of a sudden they start looking around. They start moving. They start changing their hitches because the food is stimulating them. And this is exactly this is the behavior I want to see when I get into new seahorses. Then after they start moving around and actually looking at food and feeding, I'll add a very small amount of frozen or live. Sometimes I'll add live mice and shrimp, depending on what I've got available, or amphipods. The live food actually seems to help them relax and forget all their troubles and forget that they're in a strange environment.
Gotcha. I'm just looking up these links right now. That's why it's taking a minute. Oh, that's such a cool one. I've been doing in slow motion. Okay, well, let's. I know we're jumping a little bit, but let's go ahead and talk about Holly's question. I believe it was Holly Buchanan, and she asked, did I say someone else, Ray? I might have said someone else, but she asked if anyone keeps any types of starfish in their tank. Who wants to go first?
I had one years ago.
Go ahead,
Not
Ray.
worth the risk, in my opinion. I know there are people that do it. There are people that have done it and wish they hadn't, but I don't know the actual results of it. But for me, anything that's knobby, for sure I wouldn't have in. And the serpents are hit and miss. It's a personality thing usually, coupled with whether or not they're hungry. But the serpents can latch on quite easy. Serpents were always catching my mandarin.
Well, it's like a friend of mine got a seahorse from me. He got several seahorses from me. Well, what he found out, he had Asterina stars in there, was the morning he woke up and found one attached to the operculum on one of the males, and a hole had been drilled through the operculum into the basically the respiratory system and the seahorse was dead. And it comes down to your risk tolerance. There's a lot of things that may do fine even for several years, and all of a sudden one day you wake up and you've got a disaster. It's a personal decision that you have to make.
Do you think that it also depends on the size of the tank? Because, like, I know the gentleman that came on and showed us his 300-gallon seahorse tank, he
Right.
had coral and he had stars and he had all that stuff, but there was 300 gallons. There was more room. The stars were less likely to crawl on the seahorse when they're sleeping
Right.
and eat the algae, because the stars aren't trying to hurt the seahorses. They're just eating algae. That's what they do. But if the
Well,
algae on the seahorse, they, make a hole.
Well, it does vary by the starfish species.
True.
But one of the things is the larger tank you have, the more you can feed without having problems, depending on if you have massive filtration. And I think one of the keys is institutes that are giving huge aquariums with a lot of biodiversity are running extremely high. They're extremely high maintenance tanks. They're running a lot of filtration. They're running a lot of flow, and it makes a big difference versus somebody that has a 50-gallon tank with 4 or 5 seahorses in it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've seen some disasters. I've seen more than one disaster. But and this is why, from my perspective, I'm a small hobbyist breeder. I've been doing it for years, and I love it, and I love the seahorses. But I don't want to lose my seahorses. So my seahorses tanks are species-specific seahorse tanks. I don't put anything else in there. I'm the clean up the crew. But that's my personal thing. That's me.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm still trying to deal with computers and such. But I did find those links, so I will attach them in the description when I'm done. Okay. And let's see. I'm sorry. I saw Francis is here. Francis, feel free to jump in or give us an update. Cheryl kind of told us, what's been going on with the combs, but We'd love to see and or hear from you. And Holly, you stopped adding things to your tanks too. Seems like
Yeah,
I'm
I haven't added anything.
It
yeah.
looks like Heather
I
posted.
had a serpent star years ago. I didn't have any problems with it with the seahorses, but that whole tank I only had about 7 or 8 months before it got electrocuted. So
Oof,
yeah, I lost
yikes.
everything, but I had all kinds of stuff in that tank. But yeah, there was a little serpent star guy, and he mostly stayed in the sand. You know, he was a sand sifter. He wasn't ever really interested in the seahorses, so I didn't have any trouble with him.
Yeah. Well, one things to keep in mind when you're doing this is basically if you have a cleanup crew, all your cleanup crew is really doing is converting one form of waste to another form of waste. So it's not really truly a cleanup crew. You can't rely on them for all your tank maintenance, obviously. And that's something I also see with particularly people that are really new. They don't seem to comprehend. They think if they have a cleanup crew, the cleanup crew is going to keep the tank immaculate. It's not going to happen.
Well, but still, and I know that's Ray's made that point for years, and it's a good point. It's true. But I would much rather have a snail eat some piece of mysis that I missed and has been in the tank for a day than a seahorse, which the seahorse usually wouldn't. But I'm just saying they have a
Mhm.
purpose and they keep it looking good. Now, if
Yeah.
you have a tank without cleanup crew and you're keeping it looking good, hats off, because they just give you that little extra oomph, in between water changes. And as long as you have the mechanical filtration along with it, then, the skimmer is pulling the stuff. The sock
Okay.
is collecting the stuff. So
Exactly.
I think they have their place for sure. I love
That, and it's fun and interesting to watch a lot of different creatures.
Yes.
And especially when I was starting out, I liked, a variety of things in the tank, to watch. But it's just that the longer I keep the tank, the more simple I want it to be, because what I've learned is the more stuff you have, the more labor intensive it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
it's like me. My favorite snails to keep. I don't keep sand beds anymore, so I don't keep the snails anymore. Or Nacerius snails. They're so cool. The moment the food you start putting in food, you can see the little tube mouth thingy coming out, and they're going like this because they're already picked up. There's new food coming in.
Yep.
And if you watch them, they're not aggressive. They don't hassle the seahorses, but I guarantee you, they will find every piece of shrimp in that tank that everybody else missed.
I was
And
going
they're
to say my
cool.
peppermint shrimp used
Yeah.
to, like, they were not fearful at all. My peppermint shrimp would be like boxing the seahorses, jumping off of them to get the food. And of course, the Aptasia definitely couldn't eat it, but
That's the thing.
Yeah. My ghost
I've
shrimp.
had my cleanup crew so long that they think they're like the seahorses. They're not cleanup crew anymore. They want to eat meals with the
yeah,
seahorses
Well,
now.
my ghost shrimp, they started reproducing. I kept finding shedding and stuff. The way I could always tell a male was about ready to deliver, first thing in the morning when I turned on the lights, if those ghost shrimp came out of hiding, which they normally never did, headed to the top of the tank and stayed up there waiting for those fry to surface. That's when I said, "You guys are being eliminated."
well, in my 65, I kept a bunch of seahorses in there for a long time, and I got used to the peppermint shrimp just like they got used to me. And one trick, real quick, I just want to throw out there, I've said it before, but if you're adding peppermint shrimp for Aptasia, which is why I was adding them, and they solved, I tried so many things. When I finally got the right species of peppermint shrimp, the trick was, though, I asked the store, please don't feed them today. And so they were just starving. I stuck them in the tank. I didn't feed the tank until later. And so they started munching on Aptasia and got used to it, but they still would eat mysis. Once
Oh,
the
yeah.
Aptasia was gone, those guys were not normal peppermint shrimp. They were out. I mean, you'd go up to the tank and usually, a peppermint shrimp's going to scurry and hide. These guys would be like, yeah, and where's my food? I mean, they were not scared of me. They were not scared of anything. They were out and about all the time. So when I redid the tank after my mom passed and, my seahorses got older and I lost some of them and blah, blah, blah. And when I restarted the tank, peppermint shrimp, just kind of to be safe. I know I don't have Aptasia now because it's the same rock, but just whatever. I like them. I like the peppermint shrimp.
Yeah, they're pretty.
I added them, and I can't ever find them. What's wrong with you guys? The old guys were like part of the crew. So I guess it'll just take time, I'm sure. But I know we got veered off the topic greatly, but I like cleanup crew, same as Holly. I just like to see other things in the tank. I'm that risk tolerance level. I'm not risky enough to like add other fish, and unless I had a 300-gallon, I probably wouldn't do anything besides macros and gorgonians, of course. But I've seen some NPS tanks that are just gorgeous. Oh my God. I had, I'm not even going to remember the name. Corkscrew gorgonian. Is that it? The one that like twirls around, and it's so cool and so pretty. I had one of those in my reef, and it's NPS, like the sun corals and such, which means you have to feed them too. And I always see these gorgeous NPS tanks, and I'm like, yeah, but how long has it been running? And if you had, it's such a task to feed the seahorses. I can't imagine having to have phyto and all that other stuff to feed the coral too. You know what I mean? It would just be like, it's something I'd love to do someday. But if anybody out there, I want to hear from you. Not only do I think they're gorgeous and so cool, but that's just got to be so much more work. And then trying to keep the organics low okay, I know I'm jumping all over the place, and I see Holly wants to say something, and you can say it, but my big question is I've never really understood phyto. I've gotten Chad Copagod in here for interviews. He's tried to explain it to me. For some reason, it just doesn't get in my brain. But like you guys in the older days used to raise seahorses in Greenwater, right? I think it was Ray. And that so when I think of phyto and you're feeding a coral phyto or but I've heard people use phyto to actually like keep the organics down. Can anybody?
It wasn't necessarily for keeping the organics down. The reason I put it in there was to keep the ammonia that the fry produced, keep it at bay, because I didn't have any filtration system for my fry. I had these 4-liter jars,
right,
and I had a dozen of them. I'd set them across on the shelf. I'd have it lit. The lighting in there would be on 24 hours a day. And the nanochloropsis I'd have in there for 2 reasons. First of all, so that the food that I put in there would be constantly feeding on it, and so it would be better than nothing.
right.
And also because the nano was also taking up any ammonia that was produced by the fry.
How does it do that?
I used to culture nano, T-iso, tetraselmis, all of those, and I used to feed them to all the stuff that I was feeding to my seahorses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going back a long time ago. But it's not truly necessary if you maintain good husbandry and also take care of your basically what you're raising for food.
Right. And Ray, how does it take up the ammonia or whatnot? I always want to say eat. I know they don't eat, but
it feeds on it.
The phyto does?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I guess I just can't grasp it. I've been told
fertilizer
this times, but
ammonia is a fertilizer.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. It just, I don't know.
Phyto's a plant. Right. You're fertilizing a plant.
Yep. Okay. Well, it just must be
that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I'm seeing here is Francis has come in and has brought up a couple things. One of his comments was the frozen plankton from San Francisco Bay is huge hit for the seahorses. They were starting to snub the mysis that I was after tasting, and shrimp are bigger too than the mysis shrimp product, and which I find interesting because San Francisco Bay usually has very, very tiny mysis shrimp in the winter months, and you can even see the decrease in size in other products from other suppliers. However, when they're in their prime, the SFB could get quite large. Francis, how are the combs doing now? Perhaps this doesn't bother me. Okay, the Cheeto's outgrowing the Bryopsis. That makes sense. Bryopsis is a pain. It's ugly. We may have lost him. Nope.
There he is.
Yeah. The SFB, mice and shrimp, watch it come wintertime. Really tiny. Yeah, send a video. Kelly, we need you. The one thing, Francis, you might want to
I'm
try
here.
some mices also, except keep in mind those are a freshwater species versus SFB, which is a basically saltwater species. And that's also going to be a big difference because with SFB, they're getting the lipid profile, the EPA, DHA profile that they need, which they will not get out of the freshwater species. Anyway, he said he had.
He has a video. Are you sending it to me, Francis, or to Cheryl? He said he was going to hop in after he had to take care of something.
Don't send it to me. I have no idea what I'm doing with that.
Okay, send it to me. I'll get it. Tell me when it's sent. But and Holly, you were trying to say something a little bit ago, and I think we kind of got off on a fight.
Oh no, I wasn't trying to say anything. I was just kind of mentally agreeing with you about feeding corals.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What? Corals need to eat? I'm kidding.
Right. It's just, in a sea, I would just say if you're looking to do that, and I don't know why I'm all blurry now. I give up, guys. Technical difficulty. Anyways, what I would say is if you want to do a cool, natural looking tank, not the sterile type tanks that we talk about all the time, no problem. You can still do it. If you want to even do coral, if you want to do NPS, all that stuff's possible. Stay away from fish that are aggressive. We've gone through it a million times. But what I would say is start the tank with the seahorses first. Do a basic tank with the seahorses. Understand their feeding. Get your filtration down pat. Know what is going to be expected of you from them, and then think about adding other stuff. Which I guess that could be a bad advice. I mean, because the stuff could bring stuff in, right? I don't know. I just figure it out first. Ray, do you have a thought?
Too many people already don't like my thoughts on that. I just plain don't want something in after. But for people that do, I guess I have nothing against people wanting stuff in the tank like that, as long as they understand the risks. And if they take the time to learn what they might have to do to lessen the risk before they put them in. But I agree that I would rather see the tank set up first for a year or so and running good with no problems before they actually do anything.
Yeah.
But then if you're going to put something in, you can do things like put them in a hospital tank, and you can treat them for parasites. I don't believe in just quarantine, because they'll have the parasites, and you put them in the tank and they haven't had any stress in the hospital tank. You put them in the tank, the main tank, and all of a sudden something's stressing them and the parasitic action takes over, and you can lose your seahorses too.
Yeah.
I had all my tank mates before I added the seahorses, for months before I added seahorses, actually almost a year.
Well, but didn't we like a week or two ago have a discussion about getting the tank all set up first so that like have everything in it that you want in it first for like a year so that there's no, so it's kind of like a flip the coin, right? I mean,
I would say, it depends on how you want to do it. And like Ray said, your risk tolerance and what kind of risks you're okay with to achieve what you want to achieve.
I've learned the lessons the hard way. If it's going in a tank that's already inhabited, it's going to be treated for everything under the sun to make sure it's not carrying parasites, bacteria, etc. Then it's going to spend 6 months in isolation in a sterile tank. And then after that, it's going into a small tank with maybe only 1 or 2 seahorses, so I don't lose everything in a larger tank. And then it's going to spend another 6 months there before I go, oh, okay, well, you haven't done anything bad yet, so now you can go into big kid's tank. I'm overly paranoid because I've seen enough disasters. And not just mine. I don't have many disasters anymore, but I still see so many people try to throw everything but the kitchen sink into one tank and do it really quickly. And they end up losing everything, basically. And it's really sad.
Sure.
The
And
main thing for me is whether you do it set up before and add the seahorses after, or do the seahorses first. People have succeeded both ways.
Yes.
It's just that sometimes it's not because they did it one way or the other. They've been fortunate that the things that they've done didn't introduce something, or in addition to that, the seahorses, the particular seahorses that they bought had a better immune system and able to care for it. But when you buy a pair of seahorses, you have no idea what their immune system is like. And you could buy 2 or you could buy 4, and you might have 3 that have pretty strong immune system, have one whose immune system is literally crap. If you're unlucky enough to get something like that, or even all of them having a crappy immune system, then doesn't matter which way you're going to do it, the odds are you're going to end up losing when you introduce something else.
Yeah.
I went to my store the other day, and it's a store I do trust. I know they have only captive bred seahorses, and boy, I was flipping that risk tolerance coin, because this seahorse, this male in this tank, and I'm already worried. Actually, I'm going to backtrack just a second. Actually, I'm going to turn my camera back on. Sorry, I forgot. But no, the update for me, guys, I am jumping around, but I'm coming back to the topic. The update for me is that my male that gave me 10 babies, I don't think he's gotten pregnant again. I saw him dancing a bit, but I haven't seen any kind. So I'm really considering maybe mixing it up like with different pairs, right? And so I saw this seahorse at my store, and they keep him in a separate system. And this seahorse had so much Siri. He was just gorgeous. I mean, he had a mane. It was like my poofy hair on a seahorse. And I was like, but the store couldn't tell me, much about where he got him. And I was like, oh, I might go back and get him and quarantine him or something.
I'll give you about a 99% chance that that's a wild caught. If it's a
no, it's not. It's not though, Cheryl. This is the store I used to sell seahorses to. So I know they only do captive bred, because I schooled them. I educated them. They don't do wild caught anymore. I never have seen another wild caught. They're all smaller guys. I know what you're saying, though. I know. Go ahead.
I'm just very cautious because so many fish stores sell large wild caught seahorses and say, oh, they're captive bred. And then the people take them home and they can't get them to eat anything and they starve to death. And it just breaks my heart every time I see that. I mean, and you try to tell people and they just don't.
But when people do it, but we don't judge people if they do it by mistake, if they just don't know. They haven't been.
I'm not criticizing the people. I'm criticizing the stores for not giving adequate and appropriate information.
And all I was going to say is there's people like you out there that, like in Francis's case, he didn't really know what he didn't know what he was doing then. He definitely does now, because he got all of your help, and now he's got combs. And we do need people like Francis and you and Heather to get combs and other species that we don't have here, get them healthy, captive breed, breed them, and then the rest of us can have them. We need people like that, so it's if you know how to condition, I would say, unless you have a lot of experience with seahorses, don't attempt it. So like with me, I've got a lot of experience with seahorses, but not with wild caught, right? So even though I believe that this store only carries captive bred, and even though the seahorse, like I'm still dreaming about him, I might still go back and get him. I'm not experienced enough at treating seahorses. I know how to detect a problem, but I'm not good enough at, I still have to call Dan or Cheryl and be like, okay, now what do I do next? Which is why I'm trying to finish the website so we can all have the paperwork there and we can, anyways, I'm rambling. I got off track. Sorry.
Let me interject for a moment.
Yes, please.
I posted pictures of my wild caught pair of tiger tail seahorses, hippocampus combs, that I got as adults, and they were fairly large. And if you look at the initial pictures, the male was so emaciated he looked like something out of a skeleton. Now the female wasn't quite as bad. I spent 600. I spent 6 months, over $300 on just mycin shrimp alone for the deworming protocol, and
Yeah.
literally was jumping out of bed before dawn every morning to run in to see if they were still alive.
Sure.
And they ended up living with me for going on 9 years, and they were large adults when I got them. But I'd also been working with combs for at least, I'd have to backtrack, but at least 3 or 4 years before that. So I knew what I was seeing, and I also already knew that they were carriers of uronema, so I had to treat them with the chloroquine phosphate, and that came thanks to a lab doc who was on the org and did histopath on some other combs that someone else gave to me that he kept losing. And well, we found out why he was losing them. They were carrying uronema and were heavily infected.
Sure. Go ahead.
My point is that there's a whole series of events that led to that and led to the fact that I actually had success and managed to keep them alive. And it wasn't that I was a genius. It was a work of several different people, all of us working together to try to figure out why we couldn't keep any of them alive.
Right. And the key that I was trying to point out is that you'd already worked with them. So like someone new should never ever try wild caught, or even seahorses you don't trust the source or know for sure that they're captive bred. I agree. But like Ray said in the comments, I don't believe there's much wild caught being sold in the US anymore. None at all in Canada. I kind of tend to agree. I know that it's still a fear and you still have to be careful. And if the store's systems are attached, you're talking about they're being exposed to all this stuff, even if they are captive bred. But like buying from a breeder, they're captive bred. I have not seen wild caught. I mean, I know others will disagree. I
West
think
Coast,
Holly,
we do.
yeah. Is that because
Oh no,
you're
It's
being on
because
them?
they come as the suppliers, what they get, they can get seahorses in with bycatch. Is
Right.
how some of all the fish come into some California stores. It's because of the ocean we're on, and we have Asia, on the other side of us.
Yeah.
So when you're closer to, like the rectus are from Florida, and East Coast and the Gulf, the captive bred, and they're just more prevalent there. In California, like I said, nobody does
Yeah.
seahorses hardly. And if you put in a request for a fish at a local fish store, the way they do it is kind of by chance, is they have a list, and then if their supplier has any of that fish, he'll include it in that order. So somebody might be waiting 6 months for a seahorse, and they get one, and they're like, oh, here's a seahorse for that person.
Right. But I just go
it's
back
like my
to
combs.
go ahead. Go ahead, Cheryl.
My wild caught pair of combs that I picked up, they were sold to me first of all, and I knew exactly what they were the moment I saw them. Furthermore, they came in and they came in under the side to sell them. One of your streams. Can anybody hear me?
Am
Is
I
she
the only one
freezing?
having trouble hearing?
I think Cheryl's freezing
Okay,
up. I thought it was my computer for a minute. No,
did
you're
we lose
fine.
Holly?
Go ahead.
The other thing the other thing that happens with some of these seahorses, not only are they mislabeled and the IDs are incorrect, there's just so much extraneous stuff that goes on. It's like Francis, when he got the combs, he knew that he had combs, but the same person sold him something else and had no idea what they even were, but I forget what they came in as. And so there's a lot of stuff under there that is not really well documented. And that's an unfortunate aspect also of the trade, because there's so many people that they'll go out and catch something and claim it's captive bred and sell it for a small fortune. And it's the consumer that gets nailed on it. This is why I tell people flat out, buy from a reputable breeder. Don't.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. I would also say though, like the reason we don't have the zebra species in the hobby, and we may not have been able to anyways, for the record, who knows, but it's because they didn't go to one of those reputable, can't speak, breeders. Like I think I don't see what you guys are seeing. I never see wild caught in stores. I do often have to scold them about the way they're keeping them, but they're typically captive bred. And all I'm saying is, we need people like you guys and like Francis and Dan and Alyssa and everybody to bring in more species. And I understand it's not usually cost effective because it's so much work, as you just described, but it's a shame. I've said it before, I remember having multiple species around my house, and now like you can't find any of those species anymore.
Yeah. One thing you have to keep in mind with Hippocampus zebra is they are indigenous to the area around Australia, but they are a deep water species.
Right.
And the initial attempts to capture them, to bring them in for breeding, were totally fatal because the barometric pressure changes significantly. The only way to get them to the surface is in hyperbaric chambers and gradually acclimate them over time before you can even keep them in a tank.
I'm pretty sure the ones that were caught were not, they are deep water species, but I'm pretty sure they were caught towards the surface. So I don't know how they made it up.
True Hippocampus zebra, there's two subspecies.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay. And the thing is, both of them are deeper water species. And from the reading I've done and people I've talked to that are actually working with them, the only way to get them to the surface, because everything else that they were getting, every time they tried to bring them to the surface, they were losing them. And they finally started putting them in hyperbaric chambers to gradually acclimate them to the changes in barometric pressure.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, and Heather said her first, and Ray's feeding seahorses, I see. Okay. Her first saltwater fish was a wild-caught seahorse. I think Holly had the same experience, to be honest, but took him a week to eat frozen. But he's the granddaddy to the juveniles. And this is, like, I'm not trying to give the wrong impression. And hobbyists, we need to buy captive bred, period. If you want to succeed, buy captive bred. But I wonder, like, Heather, do you ever wonder if that's why you were so successful? I'll tell you, I truly believe that my first big male that got 12 inches that was purple, I really believe he was wild caught.
He was
wild caught.
I can guarantee you.
Because they don't get that big if they're not, and they give you better fry, which I'm not trying to flip the switch here. I'm just saying, somebody's got to bring in, not constantly. We want conservation. Nobody go out and collect seahorses, please. But I'm saying the pros that have been doing this for years, it's great when they do bring in a new species or a wild caught pair to provide healthier seahorses to the hobby. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, the thing, it's like the research they're doing right now with Hippocampus cuda. They are now coming to we've always called it the cuda complex because there's several different individuals in different parts of the world. They're now coming to the realization that there are genetic differences and that they are separate species. So now we're in the process of naming these species and differentiating them from each other. And
I don't think I buy that. I really don't think I buy that. I really think that all these seahorse species are merely different species because when they were swept up into a different area, the ones that adapted and didn't perish because of the change in temp or the change in environment, they adapted and grew things and did things and whatever over thousands of years. I'm not saying overnight, but I think I believe in the cuda complex. I think half those species are the same species. I mean, how do you define a species?
Remember, my background's in zoology, and so I'm used to taxonomy. And
that's
one of my favorites was, combs. The first combs I ever got, and that's all we had were dark bodies with typically white stripes on the tail and on the body. Now, about I want to say probably at least 12 years ago, I forget it was a massive Cat 5 typhoon hit the breeding area and pretty much wiped out everything there.
Yep.
Suddenly, a few years later, we're seeing all these yellow combs with dark markings inhabiting areas around the Philippines.
Right. So they're the same. They just
So
adapted to the area.
exactly. They are still hippocampus combs. What they have done is modify their behaviors and essentially their chromatophores to blend in into a different environment and to survive the Cat 5.
Yeah, Heather said something earlier about that her seahorses with a lot of Siri would always hide, and that does make sense. Like their adaptation is they want to stay hidden, so they grow the Siri. And I think all seahorses can do those kind of things. It's pretty cool. But I just think and no offense, because Cheryl, I have so much respect for your work and all of I mean, we had Graham Short on here. I have so much respect for him, but like I just think that a lot of times the speciation is based on things that would change if they were in a different area. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it just confuses me.
It's like after the BP oil spill, and everybody was pushing, not everybody, but a lot of people were pushing to get dwarf seahorses, Hippocampus austria, put on the endangered species list. What people weren't paying attention to during that, because we lost a lot of zots during that period, but what people were not realizing and following through is that large populations moved to the
Moved.
west coast of Florida and other
Yep.
areas around there, and basically moved in, were able to stay in clean water, continue to reproduce, and they're still very active, viable seahorses. So
Exactly.
you can't just throw something up in the air because there's a disaster in one area and say, well, that's the end of that species. It's not the way it works.
Gotcha. No, I agree. And that's, they put them on the endangered list, and I'm all about conservation. I'm all about conservation. But a lot of times, Dan speaks all the time. They wanted to put erectus on the endangered species list. And if you live in Florida, my goodness, they're everywhere. They're not endangered. So, and I'm not even going to tackle that topic because I am all about conservation. And I'm definitely not trying to say that wild caught should be in the hobby. I'm just saying that bringing in new blood, the pros, when the pros bring in new blood, that's what gives us quality seahorses in the hobby. Then we can breed our captive bred seahorses and they're healthy too, Go ahead,
Look at
Cheryl.
some of the beautiful color popping seahorses, erectus, that Alicia Seahorse Savvy is producing. She carefully selected and brought in some beautiful seahorses from other areas, still all erectus. But what she's producing now, it's like, who is it? Heather's Marble,
Mm-hmm.
who
Yep.
has 3 different colors. I mean, uh, she's producing some really amazing color patterns.
Yep. Dan sold me a piebald that was black, yellow, and white.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, it was beautiful all over. But yeah, no, yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I just, I'm glad when the pros are able to, because I was going to say, I still agree with Ray, because when I was wanting to get serious about breeding and wanting to become a pro, which
You
I'm
have 2
not and I wasn't.
kids.
Well, I know, and I realized I
Kidding.
couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But when I was trying, I couldn't get wild caught seahorses. I
Yeah.
couldn't get them even when I wanted to. You couldn't find. I had to go to Dan and find a resource, and then he, of course, talked me out of it. But I have kids, like you said. But anyways, I don't know.
No, I know where you're coming from. The first true captive bred seahorse I ever got, actually, I got several in one shipment. But the real clincher, it came from Jorge Gomez Herrado, who designed the Baltimore Aquarium Seahorse exhibit. And that's when he was operating Draco Marine years ago. He sent me this like 8.5 inch male that was silver.
Wow.
That male never changed from silver. His mate changed to silver to mimic him, but he would never change.
Gotcha. Hey, I
Don't
saw Holly. Oh, sorry, Cheryl. Holly, I saw you just sent some pictures, but I finally got Francis's videos too. So let me show them real quick. And I'm
Nice.
guessing this is the Combs male, I believe. Hang on, let me get it going. Oh, apparently it's going to show the whole screen. That's all right. I don't care. You guys can
you
see
see
mine.
Francis? He's buffering from both you and I, and the video. He's tried to send the video, but it's not going through.
Hang on. No, I got it finally. I'm just trying to open it. You're going to see my business suite. Don't copy anything, people, because I don't know how to make it big. But, all right, so this is
Yeah.
the male, I'm guessing.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I
adorable.
see a pouch. He said no pouch, but I see a pouch. And what is the bubble thing on the side?
It's a
Is
bubble
that like
wand.
a... Oh, a bubble.
That's
And look how he
so
likes it.
cute.
I want
Yeah.
the bubbles. Here's one. Oh, I think it might be the same one. I think he's trying to send it. I want a bubble wand now. It looks like he loves that.
Okay,
My
one is more
babies
yellow.
loved that. I used to have them in with my fry, and the fry loved it.
Nice.
I
Well, I
had
mean, he looks
one that
good.
suction cupped across the tank. It was long, and
Yeah,
they would
that's the
hitch
same
on it
size.
and sit there. That's adorable.
Absolutely.
Actually,
And
Francis,
go ahead.
that seahorse looks beautiful, looking great, nice body fat, lovely coloration, no abnormal coloration anywhere. That seahorse looks to be in pristine condition.
And Heather, you said you can get me wild caught if I want to go pro Redeye or Rectus. The Redeye are tempting, but that was the whole point. I realized I can't do it. Too much work. Too much work for Kelly. I'm not, and I would feel absolutely terrible because I am also about conservation. I would feel absolutely awful if I tried something like that and failed. I remember a few years back when I was deep in the seahorses, people reached out to me. Multiple people reached out to me because a seller that I knew, I won't mention any names, but a seller that I knew had dragon pipefish, or no, ghost pipefish. And the people were reaching out to me because they didn't want these guys sold to someone who had absolutely no experience. And so I'm like thinking I'm rescuing and protecting these things. Well, I found out much later that not only is their feeding really not quite understood yet, but also, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to turn on my camera again, but also they, if they're not collected properly, like the two, I did take them and I did fail, just to let you know. And then I felt horrid. And that's what I'm trying to say is don't do it, because the male was floating on his side from the second he got, because he was collected improperly. They've got this air thing going on. I didn't really understand it all, but I did everything I could. And this is someone with years of experience with seahorses, and I failed. And then I felt terrible for even trying. I someone else with less experience would have failed too, but it doesn't matter. I still really tried, bought all these ridiculous foods, tiny foods for them to eat. And the female actually stayed with me for a good month, but they weren't collected properly. And I don't think they really belong. Anyways, I'm rambling, but point being, and you said your wild caught that gave you such good genes was only lived for about a year and a half in the hobby. So, I mean, definitely I'm not trying to go away from people with hobbyists. Get captive bred, please.
Well, there's you have to keep in mind there's a lot of bycatch that these people try to sell off the docks to get caught in their nets. And right now, it used to be a ton of seahorses. And it seems like people have woken up to seahorses, but haven't quite figured out now that they're bringing in pipes as bycatch also. And I have, in the last couple of weeks, I don't know how many, at least 3 or 4 different Gulf pipes that some different people bought that were on their sides within 2 to 3 days.
Aw.
And that breaks my heart. Yeah. I mean, that's just trash to do that. And I think the next step forward needs to be doing something to help save pipes as well.
And Francis, just to let you know, I don't think I got the female one. Maybe try sending it to my personal page instead of SW. I'll try to message you on there. And Holly, do you want me to show your pictures?
Sure.
Okay, hang on. Let me text.
I'll be right back
Francis.
in a sec.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to do 5 things here.
Yeah,
guys.
those just showed up in my Facebook. They were from before the days of digital camera. So these were my first captive bred seahorses back in 2008 that I got from Dan.
Awesome.
And
I'm so sorry,
and-
guys. Give me 1 sec. Go ahead.
They were Redeye seahorses. I had a pair.
I was gonna say I don't see Redeye around anymore.
I haven't in a while either. I haven't looked for them, but I used to notice them like on Alyssa's page,
Yeah.
and I haven't looked for them, but I just haven't noticed them out there either.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. All right, so these are your so your first pair were from Dan though? They weren't wild caught. I was thinking you.
Well,
had
no,
wild caught.
my first pair was wild caught. It was back in the 1980s.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know what captive breeding was like back then, you know.
Right.
We didn't have
Oh.
internet.
Look how beautiful. Oh, Redeye. I mean, I love Barbori, probably the best, but the Redeye are just gorgeous.
They were pretty seahorses.
What did I miss?
Oh, hang on. I'm pulling it back up. Look at that beauty. Oh, I love the Redeye patterns.
Oh, yeah.
I keep screwing it up. Sorry. Here we go. Next picture. My computer's dying, you guys. It's
Uh-oh.
kaput. No, I mean like in general. Oh,
yeah, so you
man.
can see, I didn't know as much then. You can see I'd crushed coral gravel and
Right.
yeah.
Sorry. Sorry. Okay, talk, Holly, because I'm trying to deal with Francis.
Oh,
Tell us more
okay.
about. Ooh, look at their yellow heads. Were they flirting at that point? Is that why their bodies are all right?
Yeah.
Looks like a very young male and female in that
They
picture.
were, they were from Dan, and I think these are when they were pretty new, within maybe the first week or two that I had them. And yeah, I mean, this was a long time ago, mind you. So, I mean, I honestly don't remember a whole lot about. I had a lot of stuff, different stuff in that tank. I had some corals and stuff. You can see I did mushrooms and zinnia. And the tank, I just had one pair of seahorses. It was actually a small tank. It was 30 gallon. So I had the pair of seahorses. I had a cleanup crew and 2 fish in there, and the corals. And I was using a canister filter.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, back then I was using a regular heater that goes inside the tank.
Oh, I see it.
And the heater electrocuted everybody when I was about 6 months in.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
I haven't done heaters inside a tank since, unless it's in like I have to do it, for the hospital tank sometimes if it's winter, but I use guards and stuff. But yeah, I don't trust the heater. And they're probably better now, I imagine, the technology than they used to be.
Yeah,
they have.
Still.
Go ahead, Ray.
I've got heaters I'm still using. Well, I should qualify that. I'm not using them currently, but I still have them. They still work, and they're from the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that
I run Inkbirds on my tanks.
ones that have come on under development in the 2000 era, they don't last.
Yeah, and that was, like I said, 2008. So,
but these are evil that were made in Germany, I believe, back then. But then the company ended up getting sold, and the heaters they produce afterwards are just nowhere near the heater that the old ones were.
Yeah.
But
Well,
they
come
Because
to
they
think
want
of
you to
it,
buy
we
more.
do have
Yeah.
some heaters left from, I think, the 1980s that we still use in the freshwater tanks.
By the way, if you have a heater that doesn't matter whether it's in a sump or it's in the tank, if it acts up and electrocutes, it can do it from the sump as well because the current flows through the water.
Yes.
And if you got water flowing from the tank down to the sump and then back up again,
Hmm.
the electricity is going to go through that pathway.
This
What
is
I
why you
have is the
Mhm.
flow through.
Yeah.
You know, where the heater is between, it's like the water flows through the heater. Do you know anything about those? Are those any safer or less
No,
safe? Or
never
you
had one
guys
like that, so I don't know.
I
I
think
wouldn't
they
trust
have
that.
some kind of a auto shut off switch is one reason I use them, but they cost an arm and a leg, I'll tell you that. They better be
All right.
better.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I
Go ahead.
hate heaters, and I hate using probes into my tanks and that kind of stuff. I do on occasion, depending on the circumstances, but I try to keep everything external from the tanks and all of them with surge protectors on them. It's a safety protocol.
So if you see my funny faces happening, I was trying to pull up my Redeye from Dan. I miss Redeye so bad. Seahorse Corner, you never know. I might be talked into it because I've got twin 15-year-olds. I'm not prepared to like take on a huge breeding project, but I miss Redeye. So somebody's got to do them. So that I can't see this computer is just, so it's not pulling them up, but I did get Francis's second video.
Did she freeze or she just stand still?
I think she froze.
It looks frozen.
We know how to freeze Kelly. Holly, move.
I'm
No.
moving. I'm
Raise
Googling
a
something.
smile. Kelly, on the other hand, is a statue.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a moment.
I am back again. Sorry, guys. I just need to trash that computer, but it's got I've got women in reefing videos that aren't done and they're on that computer. All the software's on that computer. So I keep trying to keep it, but it's not working out for me. So let me see if I can now show you guys on my better computer Francis's females. Let's see. Sorry for the delay. Here we go. Let me start it from the beginning. Okay, where are you? Okay. Here we go. Oh, look at that gorgeous girl.
Aw.
Looked like a Molly was interrupting.
What's like a what?
Looked like a Molly, the saltwater Molly.
Yeah. She
Oh,
looks
she's adorable.
Okay. Notice the difference in the color, the yellow rings versus the white rings. The yellow rings will most likely become the female.
I do see the yellow and the exact. It's literally cozying up to the snail that's striped like she
Although
is.
the darker, okay, that's what I was looking for. Get out of there, fish. Okay, that looks like the female.
Yeah.
Interesting. So the male's got more yellow, which is, he may change again. Usually, what happens is the males tend to stay darker with more yellow and brown on them. And as they mature, the females typically turn yellow and oftentimes have orange and different colored white spots on them with still the tiger tail markings.
And actually, the mollies keep getting in the way, but I did have a question, Cheryl, because anytime, and I don't know combs at all, but with the rectus or any other species I've kept, when their snout turns dark like that, is that just coloration or is that a sign they're irritated?
That is typical of combs.
Okay.
The thing
But
is,
go ahead.
I've got hundreds of pictures of combs, and that is very classic combs. The seahorse has got nice body weight, is moving around actively, good coordination, probably a little stressed with the camera, possibly, but definitely in very good condition.
So when an erectus or some other species gets a dark snout, does that worry you guys? I'm not asking because of this seahorse. I'm asking because of mine. Anytime they
I
get
don't worry about color
okay,
unless they have to give me something else besides a color change.
okay,
Because seahorses change color for a living. That's how they stay alive.
yep.
And what I'm looking for is the tip of the snout white and is the lower part of the jaw not moving. I look for that. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. With their breathing, is there trigger action, or is the trigger reacting in order to open their mouth and keeping it open for a prolonged period of time? Those are the different things I look at. I don't look at seahorses the same way most people do.
Well,
Because I'm looking for problems.
She's beautiful, and I'm jealous.
Lovely, lovely combs.
And sorry, I lost my chat again. No worries. The duo is abnormal. Male is consistent white belly with yellow dots. Female has always looked like a mosaic. Love it. Computer's back working. I'm just going to turn this off. Hey. Okay. All right. Anyways, what else, guys? I'm trying to handle computer problems over here, so.
How do I get somebody to finish redoing all the my house on the inside? Because I'm getting tired of it. I've only been working on it for 3 weeks. It's only a meeting.
Oh, good night, Ray.
Okay. Good night, Ray. We probably won't go much longer in this computer still.
Hey, Ray, stay safe if the weather gets bad.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's gone on by now, so London
Nice.
missed it.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And Francis, I haven't gotten the other video yet, unfortunately. Let me try to see. Maybe it's there now. Is it in email or is it in? I can check email. Hang on. Real fast. Anything else we need to discuss, ladies?
I think not regarding seahorses. Mine are doing fine. No new news. Everybody's doing all right.
Okay,
I've been watching baby birds. I think all of them left but one baby bird.
Sorry for the repeat, guys. I don't even know how to turn this damn other computer off.
What I find hysterical about seahorse people, okay, now I've been watching a cardinal nest and a house wren nest, and basically Holly's been watching. What species are they, Holly?
It's a Pacific slope flycatchers.
She's been watching that nest. And then I had a doe that dropped her fawn directly behind my car in my driveway. I was watching for several hours, and all of a sudden she got a milk letdown, and I went, holy shit, and there comes the baby. And she was here again today. They were in the fawn's now getting around really well. And then I've got cardinals that nest in the trees, and having cardinals now. They're coming down on my porch railing and sitting there staring at me like, "Well, don't you have anything for us?" And then I've got the squirrels and the opossum. You know, they tell you opossums, if the baby falls off, they won't go back and pick it up. Wrong. My opossum went racing back to pick up a baby that fell off one night
uh,
and took off. So anyway,
So I have a question for you, Cheryl, since you've watched a lot of birds' nesting habits, because this is my first one that I've had close enough to watch. And
actually, the chicks
I
are
had
really
overnight, I had 3 of them disappear. Can't find them anywhere. And I think they're like fledgling size. I verified there's only one baby left in the nest, and it does have flight feathers, but I expected when they're fledgling that I'd still see them around, and it might take them a little while to leave the nest. But do
No.
they ever leave
Well-
all of a sudden and just be gone?
Yeah, once they fledge, they're going to be gone because what's going to happen? They're going to come out of the nest. They're going to hit the ground, and they have one choice to survive. They have to fly, and they're going to be crappy flyers. They're going to be trying to fly down, but usually they aren't very good at it. And they have a matter of minutes to get good at flying. Once they get good at flying, then you should see them flying around in the yard. Right now, they're probably, when they first fledge, if they can find a place to get up high and hang out, they're not moving. And they're waiting
Okay.
for parents to come
Because
and
I
feed.
read they do it usually early morning. So I noticed them gone, this morning when I went outside around 6 a.m. I didn't see any nest activity. And the parents haven't been around at all, but there's one baby left. And a friend of mine guessed, well, it may have been the last egg laid.
Yes.
And I've noticed, though, the mom has come back a few times today, but not as many times as she was. And Scott said, well, maybe since there's only one baby and they were feeding 4, maybe they don't have to come as often, or I'm just not used to it, so I don't know what to think.
The thing is, they have to focus on what they have the best chances for survival. It doesn't mean that the parents won't come back and work with that little one, but it means that it has a lower chance of survival. Because normally, once they fledge, they may crash to the ground, and they got to get on the wing fast because cats and anything else is going to grab them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on their genome, that sense of panic.
Yeah. And I'm thinking the parents are still maybe helping the other babies that are off somewhere else.
Right. And what happens then is the fledglings follow the parents. Once they can get on the wing, they follow the parents and they stay behind them. And the parents actually initially will continue to feed them for a brief period of time. And eventually they say, you're on your own, Bubba. You go hunt for yourself. But it's one of those things. You kind of have to watch them over a period of time, and you get to know the individual pairs.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect basically they have fledged. Maybe there was a slow grower. It doesn't mean that it's over for that one. Most likely the parents will come back and check. And if he didn't fledge today, he should be out of there tomorrow, or he's got problems. The other thing is what's going to happen. Don't be surprised if you see one or both parents and a series of the fledglings behind them.
Yeah, I just have to watch and see. I've seen them a few times today, but they're not as around the yard as they were. Like they're farther away, like in the neighbors' yards. Yeah, they came into my yard only a few times, not like they were.
They're going to head up high into the trees. What they're looking for.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah. They're looking for bugs, and they're also finding a safe haven where they can hang out now that they've fledged, because they just lost their security blanket.
And I see. Well, good to know. Yeah, because I was wondering. I expected I'd see them practicing, or something.
Yeah.
but they
Oh,
were just
they'll
gone.
stand, they'll
I
stand
didn't
next.
know that they were that grown.
Yeah.
But I registered them on the Cornell Lab website, for Nest Watch. And when I put in their information, it says their average fledgling time is 14 days. And it's been 11 days now since I noticed them when they were chicks. I don't know exactly what day they were born. So they are about that age.
14 days would be just about perfect because as soon as they lay the eggs, the first thing that the hen is going to do, she's going to lay the eggs, and then she's going to sit on them. She's not going to be leaving the nest. And the male is not going to be going back to the nest unless he's 100% sure that he can sneak in and nobody can see him.
Mm-hmm. Now, it was the male, the way I discovered the nest was the male going to the nest. He landed a foot in front of me when I was on the telephone. And I looked at him. I'm like, why is this bird just landing here looking at me? And then he went to the nest. And I'm like, oh, they have a nest.
Yeah. And the
And
thing
that
is,
was almost 2 Saturdays ago. So this Saturday would be the 14 days from the day I saw them. So I don't know what days they were born, but I noticed 4 in the nest on that Saturday. So the latest born, because I guess they're born a day apart. The eggs get laid and hatched a day apart.
that's what they say. I used to raise birds, and I've had them do everything from lay 3 or 4 eggs in one day to have 2 or 3 days between egg laying. Typically, the smaller species, the more delicate species, actually lay as quickly as they can. They need to get everything out and hatched and moving.
Yeah, so I don't know when they actually hatched. So it might be their fledgling time right now. I bet it is, just from our discussion and what
And
I'm
this seahorse
reading.
is looking at you guys and saying, why in the hell are we talking about birds instead of seahorses?
Why aren't you talking about me? Look at me.
Look at the look on her face. No,
Yeah.
I didn't even
Look
realize
at that striped snout. That's adorable.
that's barbaric.
One quick response, real quick. Holly, keep in mind, birds can lay more than one egg in a day. Wild birds will typically lay more eggs than like chickens or things like that in one day. And basically, there's usually they have a spare or two that are not going to make it.
The seahorse does not believe you. Look at her expression.
Yeah, look at that
She
face.
does not trust you. No, and I want you guys to continue. I didn't even realize I was sharing, but I did want to try to get to. These are my barbori. I wanted to show you guys my Redeye. I love that seahorse. Loved her so much. I wanted to find the Redeye just so I could show you guys my Redeye before I forgot. And then
who's Pinky? Go back to Pinky.
Pretty.
Go back to who?
Pinky.
Oh, that's pretty.
Pinky? You mean the barbori?
No, that one. Go back.
Oh, this one?
Pinky. No.
That was
minute
ago. That's actually little Cheryl. She was my first seahorse that I raised.
Well, this one. Go back.
Oh, there's some news I have. So Sadie just turned 2 years old on Sunday. And so I've been sharing on my Facebook, the pictures of the fry came up and my pictures of raising that batch. So I've been sharing those.
Nice.
And I can recognize her because she stands out. I'm used to seeing her. So I can look back in pictures, not when she was a tiny fry, but when she was maybe, 4 weeks old or so. I can recognize her in pictures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aww.
Sorry, I'm trying to get to my Redeye. They're in here somewhere on Google Drive. That's one of my favorite seahorse pictures. He's just like, what?
Look at that big
What?
snout.
What? All right. Those were my first 3 after, and that was a girl
Aw.
that turned boy. And the Redeye are coming somewhere. I know.
These are
Barbori.
Erectus.
That one's Barbori. Barbori.
Yeah.
Barbori.
I'm going to be right back.
Okay, I'm hurrying. Little fries. And see, that's what I was saying earlier is when you don't start feeding them frozen soon enough, they start not developing as well. You know, I learned that. Barbori. Oh, I miss them. That was my favorite. Oh,
Are you sure
favorite.
the barbs and not subs?
I'm absolutely sure. I bought them from Dan.
I'm messing with you, Kelly.
Oh, yeah. No, those are from Dan. They're captive bred barbs. They were gorgeous. I loved them. One of my fry.
I was laughing because
That baby bird is awake.
Hey, I was going to tell you guys, this is when I told,
Oh.
Heather's talked a lot about piebald. This obviously isn't piebald, but I had a batch. It was like all like snow white with like black spot. They were so, I had never seen anything like it. But I'm trying to get to, okay, Redeye. Here's the first, the female. That's the male. No, I think that's a male.
that's the female. The first one looked like a
That
young
doesn't
girl.
look. My Redeye were more spotty
That's the
looking.
female.
It
Cheryl.
varies. They're see that's the female.
That's the male. I promise. That's the female. See the cutoff, and that's the male. He just didn't have much
He's
of a
just
pouch yet.
growing a pouch. He's just
And I
starting.
will say these are the pictures that I used and because they actually had ammonia poisoning when I first got them, so I had to treat them. So they're not as brilliant and bright as they got. I was hoping I had better pictures in here. If not, I'll have them next week because they were gorgeous. They were just okay. I'm done with show and tell. Well, there's some really white seahorses. Look at his face. Look at his eye looking at her. And you see the empty pouch.
The thing is, that last picture. Go back to the male.
He's not pregnant.
No, he's not pregnant. Look at how deflated his pouch is right there.
Yep. He must have been getting ready to blow it up.
Yep.
That's exactly right. He was definitely in the mood to.
I was trying desperately to find the Redeye, but I'm apparently not going to. Oh, that's my name, Dan. He was my favorite horse ever, and this picture doesn't do him justice. He was like pink and clear and just gorgeous.
Wow.
But anyways, okay, I'm done with my show and tell because I can't wait. Do you see that one? Look at she was so spunky. Oh.
I think my favorite was when my babies, they went through a stage, I'll say maybe about 3 months old or so, when they liked to sit on the bubble wand and they'd turn like black and silver because they thought they were matching the bubbles in the bubble wand, and they were so pretty, but no one stuck to it.
So this is no, they never do, but this is Dan the Barbori saying you ladies are going on too long and the damn stream. I miss those guys.
Oh, look at those faces. Adorable.
How long did you have the barbs?
The barbs I had for about a year. That's my sob story where hang on, I'll tell you. Look at that picture. Oh my God, I miss them so much. Oh, she was my favorite. Ooh, her Dan. Anyways, okay, I'll turn it off and the Redeye pictures for next time. But no, basically the barbs I had for a year, loved them so much, and then I went on vacation. And I trained my mother-in-law. And to be fair, I had 6 seahorse tanks and 4 fry tanks that I expected this woman who had no idea what to do for video. I'm not mad at her. I understand. But anyways, bottom line is that was the big sob story where we went on vacation. I FaceTimed her every day and was like, when she was at the house, I was like, okay, so you did this. I had sticky notes
everywhere.
If I did it again, I've said to many people, I would have cameras because then I can really see.
Yeah.
She did everything perfect for an entire week while we were in Florida.
Wow.
And the freaking came home. She came over in the morning to feed him. We were going to be home that night. She forgot to turn because in the Barbori tank, it was not some sophisticated thing. You had to literally
You had
unplug
to
it,
shut it off.
feed and stuff. She didn't plug it back in. I came
Oh,
home. I'm not kidding you guys. When I saw them, I have a video of it. I'll never share it because I'm ridiculous. But I FaceTime Dan and I'm like, can I give him out the mouth? What do I do?
yeah. How can I save them? Oh,
He actually sent me two new Barbori too, just because he was my friend and knew. Anyways, I didn't mean to get into all that. Sorry. Yeah, exactly.
That's sad. No, accidents happen. I've had accidents happen too. Like I mentioned, the heater thing. I had my Dandy was the first seahorse I had this time around. I bought a pair, him and his partner, and she unfortunately died in an aquarium accident on cleaning day. She got trapped under a rock.
Oh,
We didn't know, and
well,
lost.
sorry,
Guys,
I was just going to say, absolutely, accidents happen, and I'm not mad at her at all because she took care of all these freaking seahorses for a week. But they were courting, they were doing the spins. I was going to have Barbori babies. It's so depressing. Anyways, go ahead, Cheryl.
This is why I have not taken a vacation or left my house other than go to the store or essential needs for almost 20 years.
Yep.
Same here. Well, I only leave for overnight.
Right.
I leave for an overnight, and when I go, I don't have anybody take care of the tanks, other than let me know if something's flooding or something's not right. Nobody feeds. They just don't get fed during that time. They wait for me to come back because I'd rather they have them not eat than have them fed and then the food not cleaned up right or
no, exactly. When I came home, one of the fry tanks, she did an excellent job. Let me be clear. She did an excellent job. Except for that one final. And also one of the fry tanks was like filthy. Like tanks, nobody else is going to do it the same way. You can't blame them. It was hard. I would love, if anybody ever has Barbori, oh man, I would kill for some Barbori because I miss them. They were so picky. They're the seahorses that would only eat mysis that had eyeballs on it. I don't care. I just adored those seahorses.
They were adorable.
They were. But that's a good thought. Since I wasn't able to play all of Francis's videos tonight, Heather said that's seahorse slavery, Cheryl. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. They're basically not letting anybody else touch my seahorses other than
right. They're slaves. Anyways, I was just going to say, maybe that's
they're not the slave. I am the slave.
Right. That's right. But maybe if Dan's not ready for Seahorse part 3 next week, I don't think he is. I think it's going to be at least one more week. Maybe we should all get pictures together and, me have it more in a
dress Dan in different snouts. And different
no, not Dan. My Dan. Okay, that would be a full show because he's amazing. But my Seahorse Dan. But no, I'm saying we could invite other people to show their seahorses, and whether you want to show them live. I can't literally turn my computer. I'm obviously having computer trouble anyways. But I can't show, but I can show you guys pictures and videos. And I got Redeye from both Alyssa and Dan. And that's what I was trying to show you guys when the computer died the last time. So next week, I'm going to show you because there were major differences. And I'd love to discuss that. Like the Redeye from Alyssa were gorgeous, but they resembled Erectus more to me. Like their snouts and everything. The Redeye I got from Dan had a completely different head build. Their head was completely different. So I'd love to discuss that next one up right now. So
Kelly, remember, you've got Redeye that are interbreeding with Erectus. and we know
Right.
it
I've
for
had hybrids
practice about
too.
33%.
Right.
Yeah. So what's going to happen over time, and Dan made this so what's going to happen over time, and Dan made this very clear years ago when he was first talking about it. Sometimes they look like Redeye, sometimes they look like Erectus, sometimes they look like something halfway in between. And he said sometimes it's really hard to tell which seahorses they're trying to be at that point. And he made that point to me because I was very curious about it. And so they not only change color, but they actually change their overall body appearance to accommodate their environment.
Sure. And I agree
So
with you
that's
110%. But what I'm saying is, I'll show you guys. I can't pull them up right now. They're on this computer that's not working, unfortunately. But I'll transfer them by next week. And I'm telling you, you're going to be like, what? Those are the same species? Because both are gorgeous, both are healthy. But the Redeye from Dan looked very different than the Redeye. And I'm not saying either one's right or wrong. And I did get hybrids from Melissa too. I'm not
yeah.
saying anything bad about anything. It was just interesting to me that they were so different fundamentally. Like their heads were shaped different completely.
But
It doesn't make sense.
this is normal in speciation in any organism. They're going to modify. Sometimes they're going to come up with extremes. Usually the extremes don't work out that well, but they continue to modify their physiology, and it can give them basically a very significant survival advantage.
Sure. But these are both captive bred Redeye.
It doesn't matter whether they're captive bred or not.
Okay. Well, again, I'm not trying to prove a point. I thought it was good discussion.
It's like baiting goats or what are they? The thing they make fur coats out of.
Minks,
Uh,
ermine.
mink that drop dead if they're scared. Things like that. There's a huge number of different idiosyncrasies in different species. There's moths that can blend in perfectly into the bark of a tree. And I mean, the list goes on and on forever.
We have a lot of those here. They end up in the grow out tank.
Okay.
I figured out because there's a back door is in here, and I have one of those magic mesh screens, but it doesn't quite close all the way. And I figured out if I open up all the windows, but not that door at night, and I open it in the morning after it's light in here, then I don't get as many moths in the house.
Smart.
So I've been opening that door like about 5 or so in the morning. Then we can open it up. But if I have it open at night, they find their way in here somehow. And then I woke up one morning last year. I woke up to a swarm of praying mantis. Because I guess they came in here to hunt the moths.
Oh my gosh.
And they were smart though. None of them were in the tank. They were on the edges. They were walking on hose lines and everywhere and along the sump, but none of them fell in the water. They were a lot smarter than the moths, I guess.
I tell you, every morning I get up, first thing I do is open the front door and go racing out with a huge net. Not really, I'm kidding, but it's a thought sometimes. I just can't see myself doing that.
Okay, guys. Well, I know that we probably didn't get all the questions answered. Oops, let me turn this back on. I keep trying to make this computer work. Literally, it's spinning. It's pissing me off.
What do you expect? It's an HP.
What? I know. I'm on a MacBook right now. That's my preference. But I have all the software on that one. So that's my problem. Anyways, because I'm trying to conserve.
Go buy yourself an IBM, a Lenovo.
I will. I got to do something. But
it only costs you a couple of grand.
Yep. Well, hey, what's that for Wine Wednesday, right? Anyways, I was going to say thank you to everybody who joined us. If we didn't answer your questions this week, we definitely will next week. I'm going to make it my goal to have some pictures ready and videos ready to just kind of share next week. And we could talk about our own seahorses. Any of you in the audience, if you want to jump in and share your seahorses, just message me. I can give you a link. Francis, I appreciate you sending the videos, but we want you to jump in again. And Heather, if you have time. I understand everybody's busy. Hell, I'm hardly on Facebook and et cetera anymore. And I miss all my messages because I'm never on. So I get it, but come to Wine Wednesday. And
Kelly,
yes, Joe.
why do I have a shimmering seahorse on top of my head?
You have I can't tell you. I don't know. It's your background.
Because you're using a background.
Yeah. We'll talk
And you have
about
a
that
seahorse
after.
on the wall behind you.
But I am gonna close it tonight because now I'm frustrated with this computer and but we'll talk. If you have a time, I also said I would love to start having maybe not guests, but focus topics. Like one week we can talk about everything. It's Wine Wednesday, but have one question or one topic that we really want to make sure we cover, even if we've covered it before, like feeding. So get some ideas, message, or put it in the comments if it's something you want to hear about, like Holly's starfish. That was good. And we'll start doing that too. And I'll find out when Dan's going to do Seahorse Source Part 3. And yeah, I'm going to get my pictures ready for next week. We'll be sharing. And Shyla said, Shyla, so glad you came. We need an update from you too, Shyla. I'd be happy to send you a link and you could join and show us your seahorses live.
They're looking good. I've seen her pictures.
See, I'm terrible on social media. So you got to come to Wine Wednesday and show me. Come to Wine Wednesday. If you don't want to come in.
I think we need a Wine Wednesday giveaway of something.
Yeah. No,
yeah, we need a show and tell. Everybody sends you some pictures and then tell about
something a fun goofy thing, because we're oftentimes too serious.
Well, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Seahorses doing silly things.
Yes, exactly.
Got a lot of those.
There's TikToks. But let's the three of us talk about it at the after party and thoughts on it. Comment. Yes, I have to pee, so I'm ending the stream. I'm sorry, but
I understand.
Kelly's giving away free seahorses if you win the pro.
No. But I did actually, as far as giveaways go, I did say I was going to do something after 3,000. We're at 3,200 subscribers, so I need to make it the next notch, and we do some sort of giveaway for sure. Maybe we'll do something with Aquachar or a char chamber. We'll see. But for tonight, guys, I am going to cut it. But and I know you are multitasking with work, exactly, Shyla, but can't come. Send your pictures to me or Holly, and we'll share them, or a video or whatever. We'll do show and tell next week, and we'll figure out a giveaway after that. For tonight, I'm saying Happy Wine Wednesday. Everybody,
good night, all.